Good morning, everyone. Let's begin our Heavenly Parent Holy Community Oceania Hundoke with Reverend Yutaka. We will begin with a bow to our true parents, Chariot, Kyombe, Paro, and we'll recite Family Pledge number 7 in Korean and English.
가정만세 7. 천일국 주인, 우리 가정은 참 사랑을 중심하고 본연의 혈통과 연결된 위하는 생활을 통하여 심전 문화 세계를 완성할 것을 맹세하나이다.
Family Pledge number 7. Our family, the owner of Chonwoo-guk, pledges through living for the sake of others to perfect the world based on the culture of heart, which is rooted in the original lineage by centering on true love. And I'd like to ask Tony if you'd offer the opening prayer. Thank you.
Dearest Heavenly Parents, we thank you so much for this new morning, this new day, and that we can gather together here online from Oceania. We want to greet you. We want to connect with your spirit, with your heart, and also with your words. And we thank you for this incredible technology, which in many ways brings us all together, even though we're miles apart. And we thank you for for all the ways that you're guiding us individually and in our communities and in every way possible. Heavenly Parents, please be with us all today, each and every one of us, with our families, with our friends. And we truly welcome you as we listen to parts of True Mother's autobiography and the explanations and the inspirations. And we thank you, Heavenly Parents, once again for everything. I pray this in the name, as representative here, in the names of Anthony and Keitha Browning, of the Blessed Central Family, Arju.
Arju. Thank you, everyone, and greetings. We have 38 connected so far. As we begin our day, let's welcome Reverend Yutaka. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, all brothers and sisters, and thank you for joining this morning devotion together in Oceania region. So I'm really grateful to see every morning to see you yourself and also gather together. So this week there are many kind of providential event, and today evening we will have a great jumbo walk in Korea. And Mother wish to everyone to join together this evening. Anyway, especially Oceania time zone, this is really the late night. Some nation, I think Korean time is 7 to 9, right, Reverend John?
Yeah, that's correct.
So Korean time 7 to 9, Sydney time is 9 to 11, then New Zealand time is Samoa time is 11 to 1 a.m. or 12 to 2 a.m. or something. But anyway, please try your best and to join, to feel together with True Mother. So True Mother, I heard True Mother also pray together in time. So tonight there is Chombo Great Works, so we'll connect together. And as I mentioned before, there is Anshi Il every 8 days. So basically, I'm reading the True Mother's autobiography, but in the Anshil time, we are thinking our senior national leader will read the Fundoke in Anshil time. That's why next Anshil is Monday. So that time our Australia national leader, Reverend John, will read the Fundoke. So please pray and support well. And next Anshil, New Zealand, Reverend Kenji, and also going to the next and next. So anyway, we are all as Oceania family and also cooperate and unity together. So I hope we wish you a prayer and support always. Okay. So let's read again. This is the yesterday part. I will read the first part of yesterday's slide, and that will go next page. The Korean people are descended from the Tong-i race, a wise people who studied the stars and were able to ascertain heavenly fortune. Our people are also called the pedal race. The Chinese characters for pe and dal signify brightness and brilliance. That attribution recognizes our reverence for God and love of peace and serenity. To this day, Korea is known as the land of the morning calm. So when we see the Korean races and also the Korean ancestors, actually they are smart, brightness, and brilliance people and races. So they are also specialty, and they really follow, attend God from the beginning of their history. That's why people call Korea as the land of the morning calm. So Korean history or Korean races actually have a great history, and they have many ability and also the internal some spiritual speciality. So even now, Korea is known as the great nation. Still, the Korean people's 5,000-year history is filled with deep sorrow. Foreign powers constantly marched through Korea, trampling us like wild grass and leaving us stripped like the bare branches of a tree in the coldest of winters. But we never lost our roots. We overcame foreign invasion with wisdom and patience and survived as a nation, and of this we are proud. So if you see the Korean history, actually Korea has the 5,000 history. So 5,000 history is really long history. China is also similar history, right? 5,000, 4,000 history, and Korea is also the 5,000 history. So this kind of nation, which has long history, maybe doesn't exist so much. India or Middle East Asia or this European area, but Korea itself has also the long history. And Korea has many sadness or painful history because Korean Peninsula was surrounded the many bigger nation. So northern part is the Russia now, and also China, and also across the ocean there is also the Japan. So Korea nation received a lot of invasion from the foreign country. So this is Korea has suffering or painful history in these nations. So Northeast Asia, so those nations have also the similar common point. Korea, China, or Japan, already they have a many connection from the long time ago. So some history, maybe similar part or some ancestor, there are also many kind of connection. So anyway, those kind of the severe environment, but Korean people overcame and also overcame the invasion with wisdom and also patience, and survived as a nation, and also people are proud that kind of overcoming and also surviving. So this is Korean history. So every time we listen this explanation, 안녕하십니까? Do you know the meaning of 안녕하십니까? 안녕하십니까 is a Korean tradition or Korean greeting. Every time Dr. Young also emphasizes 안녕하십니까, this meaning is greeting. Are you still alive? Are you still alive? So 안녕하십니까 is are you still alive? So this kind of greeting. So already inside the word, those meaning is there. That much Korean nation, Korean people faced many challenging situations in their life or in their history. One cannot help but wonder why God allowed these people to suffer such greater hardships. I believe it was to prepare a people to whom He could entrust a great mission. We learn from the Bible that God's chosen people always endure great adversity. On the foundation of Noah, Abraham, and other providential figures, God prepared the people of Israel as the ones to whom He could send the Messiah, Jesus Christ. Facing rejection, God had to allow Jesus to suffer great trials and hardship, and to finally offer His life on the cross. So why even Korean people is brilliant and talented and ability or special person, but why God gave those suffering to the Korean people? So True Mother mentioned about the providential history in the Bible, that each central figures, Noah's time and Abraham's time, and each central figure Moses' time, they are facing also a lot of hardship and suffering. And those things is actually the condition and also the preparation for coming Messiah and Jesus Christ. And Jesus Himself also faced a lot of the suffering, great trial, hardship, and finally His life, offer His life on the cross. That's why when we learn the God's history, God's providential history, so those persons who are chosen as the central figure or central races, their suffering is not for individual, and their suffering is not only for their races or that ages. Actually, those suffering, those central figure, those races is kind of the preparation for coming Messiah and coming the great leaders or central figures. That's why when we see the all providential history, nearly each person of central figure was facing a lot of suffering. We cannot imagine. We just reading the story of Bible, Noah's time, he offered 120 years his life. Every morning went to the mountain and nearly made the ark and come back the late night in the house. And this is not only one day, not only 1 month. I don't know if many our lady, our wife is here, suddenly husband went to somewhere every morning and come back late night, never bring money to your house, never bring food to your house, never take care of your children, and go and come back. How about our old mothers? If your husband did like this, still you can follow your husband? Or immediately after one week or 1 month, you chased him out. So really each central figure really cannot imagine in this life, but they really suffer and offer everything. Then finally God could recognize them as the central figure, and because of them, God could continue their providence. So we know those kind of story. That's why all central figure or central races, chosen people, were spending a lot of great trial and hardship. Israel history also we know well. And everything is preparation for welcoming Messiah and welcoming God begotten Son. And in Korea is the preparation for welcoming begotten Son and begotten daughter, our true Father and true Mother. That's why when we see the Korean history, also not only just one group or one part, whole history from the beginning until the end. If Korea has the 5,000 years history, then from beginning until the end, those history itself is actually the condition and the preparation for accepting and the welcoming the Messiah and true parents. 2,000 years later, God chose the Korean people and entrusted to them his only begotten Son and only begotten daughter, the ones who can receive God's first love. God needed a man and a woman who could endure suffering and rejection while continuing to forgive and love all people, thus revealing God's heart of parental love. So too, God needed a nation capable of enduring suffering for the sake of all nations. God prepared the Korean people for this. Many peoples have suffered and disappeared from history, but the Korean endured. Thus, God entrusted these people with a noble mission. So God needs this kind of person and nation who capable of enduring suffering for the sake of all nations. That's why God prepared the Korean people for this. So even many people have suffered and disappeared from the history, but Koreans endured. Thus God entrusted these people with a noble mission. So when we see the Korean history, in order to the receiving Messiah, this mission itself, actually not simple mission historically. So receiving mission also spiritually. This is not simple, not just light mission. Really heavy mission for the Korean people. But Korea suffer and also endure and overcame. Like Korean race is kind of the ball to receive the begotten Son and begotten daughter in order to make a sharp and a strong knife. How to make knife strong? Maybe you know how to make the knife or how to make a ceramic. You know how to make? They have to heat many times, put to the fire or some high temperature, high temperature somewhere and put and make burn many times and heating many times. The swordsmiths have to make like this to make knife, make sword to be strong and strong and strong. Then finally, this knife, this sword, become the sharpened, become beautiful, become strong. That's why God also continuously hit, continuously guide, and continuously to make these races strong in order to endure and in order to accept the Messiah and true parents. That's why Korea, the nation itself, received many kinds of suffering but finally overcame, endure everything, and to receive our Messiah, our true parents. As a hen embraces her brood. This true mother's story. When I was born, earth was groaning with anguish as a battleground in which people shed each other's blood. People dwelled in extreme confusion and darkness and heartlessly exploited each other. As part of this wretched mosaic, the Korean Peninsula suffered indescribable torment under a Japanese occupation that lasted 40 years, from the 1905 Ulsa Nogyak, a protectorate treaty between Korea and Japan, until our liberation in 1945. I was born during that period of oppression. So this story is around 1943 when True Mother was born in this place. So in that time, earth was groaning with anguish as a battleground in which people shed each other's blood. That's why in the world level, there was serious and severe war in every area and every nation in the world level, World War I and World War II. So among those kind of suffering history, True Mother, True Father was born and spent those time period. So under Japanese 40 years occupation, even under those kind of oppression, but people enduring, and God gave True Mother in this earth. And finally True Mother was born. So now we are learning about True Mother's history and also the background. So True Mother's life. Of course, True Mother is living different place. True Mother was born in the different nation and different ages. That's why when we compare our life and compare True Mother's life, it's totally different. True Father's life is also same. That's why in order to know, in order to unite with our true parents, how we should do, how much God awaited to send our true Father and True Mother on this earth, how much Heavenly Parents was waited this moment. So in order to unite with our true parents, how we should do, we have to understand that person's past, background, and history. And we have to understand the person's current situation, and we have to understand the person's future. If we can understand, and we can totally unite with the person. So how God prepared behind of our true parents' life. And in order for our true mother, in order for True Mother to grow up, her early childhood time, what kind of environment and what kind of feeling True Mother had experienced and felt and overcoming, and also the receiving love and spend the time. Even time is different, even place is different, but as if we are watching the movie or story, if we can put our heart to there, and we can imagine and we can see the new history and the new life, and we can totally touch the feeling of True Mother. That's why when we read a Fundok, those True Mother's childhood time or her life, really we put and imagine her background and her situation, then really we can feel more about our True Mother's feeling and also the heart. So Tirumada was born under those circumstances and under background in 1943. I was born in 1943 in Anju, South Pyongan province of what is now North Korea, at 4:30 a.m. on February 10 of the solar calendar and the 6th day of the first lunar month of that year. I remember clearly the address of my home, 26 Sinunli Anju-up, which has been renamed Chilsondong in what is now the city of Anju. My home was not far from the center of the village, and the surrounding neighborhood had a very warm and cozy feeling, as if we were chicks cuddled under a mother hen. Tirumada was born February 10, 1943, solar calendar, in the morning 4:30 a.m. So this is the Tirumada's birthday, February 10. And in the lunar calendar, January 6, the 6th day and first month of 1943. So there are two kinds of birthday, but in the Korean tradition, they are using the two birthday, but especially they are using the lunar calendar. They are not celebrating the solar calendar. Now young people is using the solar calendar birthday, but the senior or elder Korean person, they are using and celebrating the lunar calendar's birthday. That's why when you try to celebrate the senior Korean person, you have to check he is celebrating lunar calendar or he is celebrating solar calendar. Otherwise, when you celebrate in solar calendar, then they are wondering, yeah, maybe you don't know my real birthday. Anyway, I'm embraced. So those kind of feeling. But anyway, still in senior Korean leader or Korean people, they are celebrating in the lunar calendar. That's why when we celebrate the elder or senior, we have to think well or check well. So our Tirumada also same. Tirumada is celebrating the birthday in the lunar calendar. That's why this month we celebrated Tirumada's 78th birthday, the 6 days and first month of the lunar calendar. So this year 2021, we also celebrated Tirumada's holy birthday. So mother said, my home was not far from the center of the village, and the surrounding neighborhood had a very warm and cozy feeling, as if we were chicks cuddled under a mother hen. So Tirumada was born with receiving warm feeling and receiving love from neighbors and from parents. That's why mothers feeling in the beginning, really the happy moment together with all families. So we can imagine how Tirumada was feeling and also the environment. Unlike that shed roof houses nearby, my house had a tile roof and a big front porch. Behind it rose a small, verdant hill covered with a chestnut and pine trees. Beautiful flowers bloomed and the colorful leaves fell with the rhythm of the seasons, and I heard every kind of bird singing and chirping together. When spring warmed the earth, yellow forsyths smiled brightly between the fences, and azaleas bloomed red on the hill. A small stream flowed through our village, and except when it froze solid in winter, I could always hear the laughing sound of the water. I grew up enjoying the happy sounds of the birds and the stream, as if they were a choir of nature. Even now, thinking of life in my hometown is like snuggling into a cozy and heartwarming mother's embrace. This memory brings tears to my eyes. So those mothers' expression, really mother's some sharing or mother's expression is really the poetic. Really we can imagine when true mother was born and spending in her village together with neighbors and family, many flower was blooming and many sound. Bird is also there. And also the winter time, the water is flowing with beautiful sound. And she can feel, remind those kind of memories, warm memory, beautiful memory. So really when we imagine through reading through mother's sharing, really we can find and we can feel how much mother felt that moment, how much her mother is longing and missing that moment. Maybe each of us have a beautiful memory together with our family or our hometown, and we can also imagine. When we imagine that moment, immediately we can go back our feeling to that moment, the time to spend my parents, the time to spend my neighbors or houses. So when we read the Turmada's sharing, also we can imagine even surrounding the national situation was severe, suffering, enduring, or difficult. But when mother was born, to spend together with the parents and also the neighbors in the small village surrounding the nature, how much beautiful, peaceful, and really listen the beautiful sound of nature and spend a great time. That's why today we are sharing about the mother's beginning part. So when you listen and when you read, what was your feeling? What kind of imagination or what kind of things you can get from the mother's early moment? So I hope you can also connect with the mother's heart and find the feeling, and also we can share the several things. So today is a beautiful day. So let's create the great day and to spend a happy moment together with our heavenly parents, together with our true parents, together with our all brothers and sisters. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Reverend Yutaka. So, welcome everyone. It's good to see everyone. I'd just like to ask, one person has called themselves Galaxy A11. Everyone else I can see their names and or faces, which is nice, but don't know who Galaxy is. But it's good to put your name. So we have Santosh soon. I just wanted to reflect on a couple of things. I was thinking of long histories and and that statement of a wretched mosaic and everyone suffering. And many nations around the world have long histories, and that statement where people endured and then they came and went or suppressed. And it reminded me of all of the indigenous communities around the world, in Australia, in the US, in Brazil, that the people suffered by the opposing people. But Korea had the lucky or fortunate situation where 900 times, I believe it was invaded in its history, yet it still emerged on top. It wasn't suppressed or squashed by invading peoples, as many of the indigenous communities are that still exist and have long histories, but are suppressed by the more stronger and powerful nations. And so I was reflecting on the central nation, which Korea ended up being, as Israel ended up being, but also all the peripheral nations that suffered because the central ones suffered to become the ones that God needed to fulfill his providence, but all the peripheral nations were prepared to receive the Messiah. And God still has that same like standard. To earn God's trust, we have to endure and not give up and not be suppressed, but be able to stand up and rise up. So, I grew up in a city, so I never had the sounds of a stream or the birds. I grew up in Sydenham, in the middle of Sydney, and my sounds were trucks and planes. So I always wanted to have the sounds of birds and nature, but no. All right, so thank you. Santosh, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, all brothers and sisters.
Morning.
So we are reading about the history of Korea, how Korea was prepared to receive Messiah. I'm one of the fortunate man on this earth that as a Unificanist, I had chance to visit each and every corner of Korea. If I meet a Korean man or Korean people from any part of any city, just they have to name it that I have been to that city of Korea. I was raised in the Unification Church as a frontline leader. I was leader in Korea, fundraising leader in Korea from 2003. Every time coming, going. And then finally, we got a chance to live in Korea for 5 years together with my wife and my daughter. So my experience is, it's not only, it was prepared, but still the same thing continues in Korea. I grew up my faith. I made my faith more strong together with the Korean people, not our unification movement, not only with our unification church member, but outside Korean people, I strengthened my faith. Korean people are such humble people on this earth. I was never cheated by any Korean in my from 2002 to 2013 and any time. So my wife and me were together listening the Hunduke when we were preparing breakfast for our kids now. So my wife was reflecting when Reverend Taka was reading, she was reflecting herself that, yeah, I truly believe these things. The Korean people are prepared. And she truly believed that the Korean people now are with the same heart, very humble, very kind, very nice. I feel that they are like God, And then there's and many members had that kind of experience. So I always recommended from 2013 when I came to Oceania, I was always asking leaders, we have to always bring our second generation and island member in Korea. I think Reverend John knows many Korean Solomon Island members used to go to Korea to do fundraising in the past. So I met, like John Gallo, I met in Korea in 2003 or 2004. And in the same year, there was a pastor, Dr. Young was leader, but I didn't knew Dr. Young that time. We were staying in Guri Training Center. And there was a pastor's couple who came to receive blessing in Korea, outside pastor. And then the leader of Guri Training Center that time told the Nepali team where I was the leader, can you help this pastor from Solomon Island to help, to raise the fund for him? And then I brought this pastor to Jamsil, the pastors club, the couple to Jamsil, and I helped them to do fundraising. And then I just told, I stopped the Korean people and told them that, see, these people are from Solomon Island. So they want to do some project in Solomon Island and we're raising funds. Within 3 hours, I was together with this pastors club couple, I was able to raise 80 manon within 3 hours. 80 manon. That's how much? $800 US. So, and then the pastors couple was also so surprised, you know. They never imagined that they will get within 3 hours $800 US for their some expense. I don't know. I didn't know the reason, but the leader asked me. That's why I just helped. And then I was always telling to leaders that let us bring our second generation and island member to Korea, form a fundraising team. Because in Korea, when our second generation and our fundraising team, they will go to Korea, the island brothers and sisters goes to Korea, they can really experience what Korea is, how Korean people are. Because we only read that the Korea was prepared land, but they can really, truly understand. They can go to Busan, they can go to each and every part of Korea, you know. So this is my wonderful experience. Even my daughter was raised there until when she was 6 years, she went to Korea, and for 5 years she was there. And my kids, my wife, they love Korean food. They love kimchi. They love tteokbokki, all these things, you know. And then sometimes we bring my family in the Korean restaurant, and then we always talk about kimchi, Korean food. And few days before, my son told us that, why don't you bring me to Korea one time? I want to taste the real taste of kimchi. The real taste. I don't know how that came in his mind, but he was telling that he wants to taste the real taste of kimchi. So we in one sense born in Nepal, but we love Korea. We love Korean tradition because our true father, our true parents are Korean. So if we can make it like yesterday, Itaka's son was telling that we have to bring our blessed family not from Chompeng to airport to Chompeng, but we need to bring them to outside of Korea. Go to Cheongju. Itaka's son was talking about Cheongju yesterday. Cheongju is the place where you get the best bibimbap in Korea. Cheongju is famous for the best bibimbap, dolso bibimbap in Korea. So it's amazing. It's amazing. So let us plan when the border will open. Let us plan to bring our second generation and island brothers and sisters to Korea for three months or something, you know, doing fundraising and some kind of educational tour. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Santos. It's a great idea. Thank you. Who else would like to make a comment? Oh, yes, Reiko, go ahead.
Yeah, just, yeah, I was listening to mother talking about the nature. I just feel echoing what the father is saying about the nature in his autobiography. Like he says, we need to distinguish the sound of rain in summer or in spring. And mother is saying like a laughing stream, you know, sound of, so sensitive to nature. And true father says, when he go to somebody's property, he doesn't need to meet a person. He can feel through the, like nature. The nature is happy, or properties, you know, grass or tree, if they are happy or content, he can feel the person, owner's character. So even though the environment is, you know, the difficult, I can feel, they can feel God through nature. So yeah, thank you. That's beautiful. Mother's testimony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Who else would like to? Yes, Jeffrey, go ahead.
Yeah, so it seems without difficulties, it's quite hard for fallen people to grow. So sometimes we seem to need enemies, strangely enough, and difficulties in life. So the Korean people sometimes, perhaps sometimes they needed struggles, you know, to understand God's heart. And it's just an unfortunate way of restoration that we all human beings have to go on. So even in New Zealand we have a what kind of say, it's a very sort of some would say leftist kind of government, and which is changing our education system in unfavorable ways. But I see it as a challenge for us. Otherwise, if everything is just mediocre, then people just sort of sit back and we slowly cook like the frog in the warm water. So the fact that today's world is becoming very extreme and polarized, it's causing people of faith to really become, I can say, stronger, you know. So yeah, that's what I thought anyway when listening to the earlier part of the reading about the situation of Korea and the many armies that trampled over Korea in history. I used to watch, my wife and I, a lot of the Korean dramas, and so a lot of the times those armies seem to be invited into Korea by the kings. So anyway, I'm sure you're familiar with some of those stories. But regardless, the Korean people have a tremendously strong spirit and deep love and, pretty amazing culture that Heavenly Parents has raised up. So regardless of whether we invite problems into our nations or into our lives, certainly in the case of the Korean people, they have been able to surmount and exist and become in the South Korea a tremendously prosperous nation, which is really God has blessed that nation. So they must have made tremendously good conditions, even among the many bad conditions we make. Somehow they have been able to God has raised them up to be very important people. When we see the North Koreans so fanatically devoted to Kim Jong-un, it's just like so unbelievable. Their sort of devoted mindset. Regardless of anything, the Korean people have a very strong spirit of endurance and overcoming, and probably that's the most important quality. At the end of the day, it's just the strong will to endure, and no matter how much intellectual ability we have, or even how much love we have, sometimes it's those who will endure to the end. That strong quality that eventually will get us to where we need to go. So the fact that Korean leaders have that strong, enduring spirit is great for us, you know. They never give up. So they're good mentors to us. So anyway, that's my few words. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Yes, Janine, go ahead.
Just very simply, just when I was listening to Mother's describing her hometown, and I felt a real longing in my heart that for a desire for Mother to go back to see her hometown, just like we always wanted, you know, Father wanted to go to his hometown, and especially before he passed, I just felt a real hope and desire for Mother to see her hometown. I'm not sure whether they went to see Mother's hometown when they went before, but anyway, just that she could see that once again.
Thank you. Okay. So, Greg, go ahead.
Yeah, just following up from Janine, this focus now that Mother has of peaceful reunification, North and South Korea, and I just feel that one of the things that could unfold, because Father always talked about having a big blessing in North Korea, is that with all the summits going on, you know, in Nepal and then in Cambodia, which is kind of a communist country, and with strong diplomatic relations with North Korea, that the culmination of this could be that Mother is invited to North Korea, and it makes this kind of rapprochement. Hopefully then Mother would be able to visit Anju, her hometown. But I just hope we can all really pray for this providence. I feel that Father and Mother really want to go to North Korea, and they want to hold a summit there in cooperation with the North Korean government, and to hold a blessing just as they did in Nepal, just as they did in Cambodia and Palau. Whenever they have or anywhere in Africa, you know, they have this big blessing. So let's all really, really pray for the success of this new providence that's unfolding, and Mother can set foot again in Anju, you know, as she talked about this morning. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Right. You had your hand up, Chris? Yep.
Yeah, just quickly, just a little insight I had when I was in Korea about the nature of Australians and Koreans. And when you look at our nature, we have gum trees and they're leathery, hard, don't need much water, twisted. But the fruit is inside a gum nut. It's like a feather. And that's exactly like Australians are. You know, they're tough and leathery on the outside, but quite, you know, furry, cuddly on the inside. That's how they are, right? So when I was in Korea, I stayed in Daegu, and they had this unique things they collect. They're rocks. They're like sandstone with a granite rock or marble rock inside. And so they'll pick it up and they can feel, oh, this is heavier than a normal sandstone, and they'll carve it out, and there'll be a piece of granite inside it, and like they'll make a turtle out of sandstone with a piece of granite coming out the side and polished up for its eyes. And I realized that Koreans are exactly like that. They're very, very friendly on the outside, but the deeper you go, the harder they get, you know. And that 5,000 years has made them like iron deep down. It's incredible. You know, anyway, interesting insight. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're now at that time where we can offer our 7-minute unison prayer together. So I'll just share screen and let's begin. Okay. All right. Adieu, adieu, adieu. Thank you, everyone, and it's always good to see you all. So thank you and have a great day, and see you again tomorrow.
God bless everyone.
Bye.
Have a lovely day.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye. See you
Bye-bye.
See you, Jenny.